Hello, everybody. What's up, you guys? Welcome to the second episode of Talking Softball with Beach. I am your host, Erica Beach. Nice to see you again. For those of you who tuned in last week, opening weekend just completed, and we are literally underway for week 2 of the Division 1 softball season, and let me tell you, a lot happened. A lot is this weekend especially. I talked about it last week. I'm like, don't even get me started. Well, we're getting started today. So, week 1, we're going to do a little recap. I've got kind of a list here of the top 25-ish because there's like 42 polls, I think, and so they're all a little different, but I averaged them and just had like teams to note and just to kind of see like what those top teams, what did they do this weekend? Who are they playing? What are the matchups, especially the top matchups this weekend? And so much craziness. But we'll start at the top. So number 1, Texas came out this weekend. They were out in San Antonio. UTSA hosted a really, really, really good tournament. They had Nebraska, Washington, and Texas come out to them. So, really kind of a fun weekend of some good softball. Watched quite a few of the games and the matchups. And so Texas ended up going 4-1. They ended up losing to Nebraska one game. Miss Jordy Ball, as you know, she got married. Her last name is now Fromm. Jordy threw a gem, great game. They um they played them twice. One of the games they won and it was literally 15-10, which is madness. Some of these scores from this last weekend were crazy. But Texas suffered its first loss of the season, had a couple really good games, good competitive weekend, really good chance just to kind of see what they have. They the lineup was fluid. There was a lot of interchanging and moving. I mean, just as it should be in weekend 1. We got to see lots of the arms. I think probably the one thing that kind of stood out the most to me as far as I guess not surprises, but just in general, was the amount of runs they actually ended up giving up. Now, they're going to give up more runs than a top team who maybe had a little bit weaker competition. But as you know, I mean, they're returning their World Series pitcher. They've they've got a great staff. But they ended up giving up 24 runs. They scored 46 on the weekend. They gave up 24. They hit, let me see, 11 home runs on the weekend. And so interesting. It's a first weekend out. So I'm sure they're also just trying to figure out kind of what they have, where they're best suited. Some pitchers tend to be better relievers, some tend to be better starters. It's just fluid. Plus, they played good teams multiple times. So that was probably, when you're facing a really good lineup multiple times, you're going to give up a few more runs because elite hitters make quick adjustments. Then we have Texas Tech, who went 6-0, and their runs to runs given up is quite a bit bigger differential. Their offense showed up. They definitely put a lot of runs up. They ended up hitting 12 home runs. They scored 64, but the key note here is they only gave up 9 runs. They did play Texas A&M, a ranked team, beat them 3-2, so a really good game, competitive game, which is awesome because as you know, getting those challenges early on is huge. You don't just want to play teams you should beat every single game, or you want to play a balance. You want to play teams that you are going to get challenged by. Texas Tech did take over the number one spot on the all the polls, so they are now your new number one team in the country, Texas Tech Red Raiders. So very interesting there. Oklahoma, I got a chance to see them play twice this weekend. They opened the season at Arizona State on Thursday, and it was looking dicey for a second. I'm telling you, ASU had the lead going late in the game, and OU, in true Sooner fashion, made their late game heroics. Their lineup was pretty quiet. ASU's pitcher Kenzie Brown threw a gem. I mean, an absolute gem. And ASU hit a solo. So they were winning 1-0 going late into the game. And then OU came in and, drove a long ball and ended up taking the lead and winning. So that was a, a very cool game. The lineup took time to kind of settle in. And then they traveled down to Tucson where they played a 3-game series against U of A and lost the first game. So that was kind of a shocker. And it was 11-6. So it was pretty bananas as far as run scoring. And they did try to make a late game push, but U of A finished on top with that game. And then the next two games, well, the game I went to was Saturday, and OU put on a hitting clinic. And like when I tell you there was just bomb after bomb, and I mean, they were just lights out. Like they were seeing watermelons that day. Like they just put up a ton of runs. It was crazy and absolutely dominated that game. 20, I want to say 21 or 22 runs that game, which is kind of hard to wrap your head around because U of A is no slouch in the circle. So that was phenomenal. And then game 3 with U of A on Sunday was way more competitive on both sides of the ball there. That was a really, really good close matchup. And so OU ended up going 3-1. They, with the loss to U of A. Now, it being a loss to a ranked team is not going to necessarily like hurt them. They're going to be fine. But I did yeah, at first I noticed obviously OU's offense, that's their infamous, if you will. So it was interesting at U of A, one, to give credit to Kenzie Brown for just how dominating of a performance to get through that lineup multiple times with minimal hits, minimal damage. And I was like, wow, this is definitely not what I expected to see out of OU, but very bright spot for ASU as far as the pitching. Um, and then in the first game with U of A, they put up 6 runs, but it still felt like we were really waiting for like the OU breakout moment, which is what happened on Saturday. Lowry got 3 wins, all 3 wins on the weekend. She came in every single day. Um, and threw really, really, really well. She's very consistent. She has great break on her pitches, and um, younger sister to Paige Lowry. So pretty cool to see kind of a legacy situation happening there. So really cool. I mean, it was fun to be able to see them play in person, and I think one of the things I really like about OU is no matter what the score is, or if they're underperforming, overperforming, all the things, whatever, they are they are always in the game. Their energy is pretty consistent. They are still dialed in. They are still talking strategy, game plan. They're still building. So you couldn't tell if you looked, and I saw them in kind of every situation this weekend. You can't tell they're up, they're down, they're sloppy, like none of it. Like they stay locked in and consistent emotionally, which I do appreciate, especially when you have the ups and downs of season. That's a really great characteristic to have and quality to have in a program because the more consistent your emotions and your responses, the more consistent your performance will end up being in the long run. So that was really cool. Then Tennessee was 5-0 on the weekend, and they faced two ranked opponents. So that was really cool. This was out in the leadoff classic out in Clearwater. And so they beat number 21 Liberty and they beat number 5 Oregon. So good matchups. They didn't have a cakewalk of a weekend and they came out on top 5-0. They also had a ridiculous kind of like ERA. They have two arms that are like their primary pitchers who will throw the bulk of their innings. And they showed two others as well, but they scored 46 runs and only gave up 2 over the weekend, which, as you know, is tougher and tougher these days to have that dominating of a pitching performance where you're only giving up 2 runs um in 5 games. So that is amazing. Again, also just hoping to see if that pitching dominance can stay where it's at and build, and then the offense kind of continue to rally and develop behind the pitching. If their pitching can stay that steadfast, then I feel like they're going to be a major contender towards the end of the season because it's all going to come down to the run support at that point because it just seems like they're just not going to give up that many runs, and I'm excited to see how that kind of flows through season. And then one of the next one we have Oregon, who was in the 5 spot. They lost. They went 2-3 on the weekend, so that one was a tough one. Now, the losses, one loss obviously to Tennessee, who was ranked above them, so that's technically a game that could go either direction. Then they lost to number 13 Clemson, which is a game they shouldn't, technically, if we're paying attention to the polls, shouldn't have lost. But it is what it is. But the tough one was losing to Southeast Louisiana. Props to Southeast Louisiana, 100%. But for Oregon, that's a very negatively affecting loss to their RPI and to things down the road. So number 5, Oregon had a tough one on the weekend, but then we have Florida, who went 5-0. They beat a good Michigan team, 5-1. And so that one, they had a good, strong weekend, good showing. They did not play any ranked opponents though. So, that's, they were expected to go 5-0. UCLA went 5-0 on the weekend. Florida State went 5-0 on the weekend. Arkansas went 4-1. They ended up splitting with the University of Virginia, who was ranked in some of the old polls. Not all of them, because all opinions differ, right? But they did lose to a lower ranked opponent, Virginia. They split with them. Then we've got Nebraska, who went 3-2. Now, again, they were down in San Antonio with Texas, and Washington and Nebraska did beat number 1 Texas, so that's a huge boost. But they did lose to Texas once, but then they lost to an unranked opponent, Washington, who is either who or lower ranked, I guess I could say. They, some of the polls have them not ranked and receiving votes, some of them have them lower. But either way, they did lose to Washington, who, had a good showing. So that is Nebraska. So they went 3-2. Texas A&M went 4-1 on the weekend. Their only loss coming to Texas Tech. Like I said, that game was 3-2. Very close game. That was really their only kind of ranked opponent, tough opponent, and it was a close competitive game. So that's positive signs, I think. South Carolina went 3-2, so they took a couple losses, so they're going to be dropping down. They lost to Virginia Tech 2 times, who's ranked 19. Now, losing to ranked opponents hurts you less, but when they're ranked below you, that will definitely affect ordering and all of that. So then we have Clemson, who we also kind of covered. They lost 2 times, lost to Auburn, and the tough one too is losing to Michigan State. Um, that's a tough one. So Michigan State being unranked, not receiving votes. those are tough losses. Like we talked about before, it's like losing to the teams that you are supposed to beat is tough. And none of this is to take away from the teams who are unranked. There are countless teams that are really talented and have a ton of potential that will might not be in the rankings now, but will be, So that's not to say that any of these teams that are unranked are like not worthy or anything like that, because we all know this sport does not know who's supposed to win. So I'm a big fan of, teams kind of coming out of the woodwork and working their way up into the rankings. And for the teams like Auburn, Michigan State, like those are teams from great conferences who tend to be a little just a touch on the bottom half, but like are close, and they, those are big wins for them. Then we've got Ole Miss, who also went 3-2. They lost to Cal State, Fullerton, Boise State. So kind of the same boat. Number 14 in the rankings, they're going to drop because as good as Cal State, Fullerton has shown and Boise State, like they're going to drop just because at this point in the season, they aren't ranked yet. And so they're losing to the unranked opponents. You're going to see a lot of movement here. The middle of the rankings are definitely going to be very different. So then we've got Bama. Bama went 5-0. No ranked opponents or anything like that. But probably one of the most impressive things that I took from that is no hitters, and they dropped 18 bombs in the first weekend, which is crazy. And I believe it broke their record, at least for the most home runs in an opening weekend. So I thought that was cool. They were down in Georgia Tech, and they are back home again, or back home this weekend for the first time. So that's super exciting for them. LSU 6-0. Well done. U of A, like we talked about, 3-2. They took their two losses against OU, a higher ranked opponent, so those won't hurt, but they did beat OU once. So I don't anticipate it hurting or helping too much in the sense of losing twice. Those two losses won't hurt them as bad because they were an opponent ranked so much higher. So not a bad deal there. But I love the challenge of bringing in a team like that opening weekend. I'm here for it. Like, get it. Then we've got Stanford 5-0. They beat Oklahoma State twice, who's a ranked opponent. So I thought that was really cool. They hosted Virginia Tech, went 5-0, beating number 12 South Carolina 2 times. So they've shown some things. So I can imagine they're going to probably move up. Georgia, number 20 Georgia, went 4-1. They lost to Belmont. Kind of the same thing. Tough loss, but we'll see kind of how that affects everything. Liberty, tough go of it. They had the toughest results from the weekend. They went 0-5. So they had tough competition. They played multiple ranked opponents. They had Tennessee, Clemson, Oregon, and the two non-ranked opponents were Mizzou and Notre Dame. So like that's a ringer if I've ever seen one. So Liberty had a tough thing. They're going to drop out of the poll 100%. So unfortunately, they're going to drop. But at the end of the day, I bet you they learned a ton from this weekend. And everything they're doing is building towards that conference season and making sure that they are firing on all cylinders when conference starts. So pretty cool. They're going to be fine. I have no doubt. Coach Dot Richardson is one of the best in the business. So I don't imagine they will stay down long. Then we've got Mississippi State. They ended up going 4-0. We've got Duke. They went 4-1. They lost to Boston University. So again, that might push Duke out of the rankings, losing to an unranked, especially when they're kind of lower in the rankings like that. They're in 23 right now. So that they'll be a borderliner or just like receiving votes based on that. Well done, Boston University, by the way. Oklahoma State went 3-2, lost twice to Stanford. And then the number 25, like there was like a million different kind of renditions of this, but Ohio State was kind of on one poll, just receiving votes in another. They went 2-2. Um, Virginia went 4-1. They lost to Arkansas, but they also beat Arkansas. So that's kind of a wash. Washington obviously competed well this weekend as well. And but my favorite thing about this is the weekend coming up, you guys. This is one of the best tournaments. I printed the schedule because so I had all matchups kind of going through the top 25, but 95% were from this one tournament. And it is literally starting, it is already underway. It started already today. So we're going to get to it so that you can get your TVs tuned in ASAP because it's happening. So the Shriners Invitational in Clearwater, Florida at the Eddie Seymour Complex starts today, Thursday, February 12th, goes through Sunday the 15th. Tune into ESPN, SEC Network, ESPN2, ESPN Plus. There are games going. So there's a lot going on. So today, I just want to go through some of the matchups. I can't cover the whole schedule because, well, I probably will almost cover the whole schedule because it's a lot of rank on rank opponents. But so Nebraska LSU was this morning. I haven't even had a chance to even check it yet. So don't spoil it for me. Oklahoma State, Georgia, I believe just wrapped. Florida State, Texas Tech. So Texas Tech is heading out there. LSU, Oklahoma State today. Nebraska, Georgia, and Texas Tech Northwestern. That's just today. That's Thursday. That's not even the main day of the tournament. So pretty crazy. But Friday, so tomorrow, this is where the really fun stuff happens. Is we've got Oklahoma State, Texas A&M. That one's going to be on ESPN2 at 10 a.m. So I'm thinking I need to make sure, but I'm pretty sure this is all Eastern time. So 10 a.m. Eastern time on ESPN2. Then we've got Tennessee, Nebraska. That's going to be really fun matchup to kind of see how the pitching domination, my anticipation, if Jordy and Carlin throw, would be a very low scoring game. So that could go either way. Tennessee may edge it out only because of their ability and speed. Speed doesn't slump as often as power does. So interesting to see that. Then we've got Duke, Texas A&M at 1. That's on ESPN Plus. Georgia, UCF. We've got UCLA and Oklahoma State on ESPNU. That'll be fun. That's at 3 o'clock. Then we've got Duke, LSU at 4:30. And I think that's all I have for that. Then we go to Saturday, which is bananas. We got Oklahoma State, Duke. We've got, let's go through here. Georgia Northwestern. We've got UCLA Tennessee is probably the number one matchup. I'm excited to see UCLA and Tennessee. Should be a fun one. That one's at 4 o'clock on ESPNU, so I'm glad it'll be kind of on main TV, not on ESPN Plus on this one because that one is just that's a main stage event. And then UCLA. Talk about your doubleheader. They're going right from UCLA, Tennessee. Then they're playing Florida State next at 7. So that's going to be just a really, really fun day at the ballpark. And then on day 4 of the Shriners Invitational is going to be Missouri Duke. We've got LSU UCLA. We've got Northwestern Texas A&M. We've got Texas Tech Nebraska and Tennessee Florida State on Sunday. Holy crap. That's just a lot to absorb. I just that's fun. So that's all you need to know about that is that literally way too much fun. Way too fun. I love good matchups, and I love early in the season matchups because they're opening weekend. There's still so many question marks going on that there's so many things to answer still. There's still they're figuring their lineups out, they're figuring out pitching rotations, and I think that's going to be fun. A couple other matchups that I just wanted to note: Stanford's hosting again. They will be playing Oregon, which will be fun. That'll be on Sunday, February 15th. Very excited for that one. And then Arkansas is going to be showing off with Clemson 2 times. Friday the 13th. Ooh. I didn't even realize. Holy. And then Sunday the 15th. So that's going to be down in San Marcos, Texas. So that's going to be a fun little matchup there. Um, and then we've got Liberty is going to be playing Florida State. They played them on Tuesday, and then they play Alabama on Friday the 13th. Duke and LSU. Oh, we already covered Duke on all of those. We covered the Clearwater, let me tell you. So, anyways, those are all of our matchups. Those are all of the craziness happening this week. There's a lot to process. There's if you don't at least have softball on in the background while you're doing other things, like come on, like get on board because it is one of the funnest things in the world. And at this point in the season, getting to see all these crazy matchups is a blast because so many of us like haven't seen a lot of these teams play in 9 months. So it's really fun to kind of see what changes have happened, what is shining through, what are they struggling with, all of the things. So pretty fun. And yeah, so that is this week in softball. I get the awesome blessing and opportunity to call four of Arizona State's games this weekend. So this will be my first foray into the Big 12. The games will be on ESPN Plus. I'm doing Friday, Saturday, two games on Saturday and one game Sunday. So I've got four games. They are playing tonight. So I'm excited to be kind of watching that as well. And so a lot of prep is going into that. I never realized like how much behind the scenes work goes into these broadcasts. I mean, the amount of detail and the amount of leg work that goes into it. I have a whole new respect, and not that I've never respected it because I've always known there's just an insane amount of work, but getting to be a part of it and do these interviews with the coaching staffs and compiling stats and organizing my thoughts and organizing getting collecting stories and anecdotes from fans and coaches and players. It's so much fun, first of all, just so you know, like the best thing ever. And but there's a lot to organize in your brain. So I'm excited. I'm gonna have four opportunities to call this weekend, and I'm going to most likely have my iPad on the side playing all the other games on the TVs so I can kind of keep track of those games at the same time because there's so much going on. So even while I'm broadcasting, I might be having some softball still on in the background, as if you can't get enough, What the heck? So I'm excited. It's going to be a blast. And last weekend with Grand Canyon was such a great experience, such a great learning experience. I got to work with Darren Sutton as my play by play announcer, and he is just a professional through and through. He is so good at what he does. He's so good. And he also called the Arizona OU series. I mean, he's just got the perfect voice. He is so smart about the things he talks about. And I couldn't have asked for a better partner. So that was really fun. And I get to work with two new play by plays for me. They are also very accomplished and very experienced. So I'm very excited to meet them and kind of get a chance to experience that as well this weekend. So keep your eyes out for your girl Beach on ESPN Plus, Arizona State, Friday, 6:15 Mountain Time. Saturday, 12:45 and 6:15 Mountain Time, and then Sunday at 12:45 Mountain Time. I will be, you'll hear this glorious voice coming through your TV. And yeah, and then again, if you guys have any questions or want any topics covered, other than, we'll always be going through what happened, what's going to happen, all of those fun things. But let me know if there's anything that you guys want more information on, anything that you want me to chat about. So I just appreciate you guys taking the time. I try to keep these things fairly reasonable. We're all busy, but I want you to be able to kind of catch up on what's happening in softball and be able to, just have fun hearing about the sport. So excited, having a blast. I appreciate you guys spending some time with me, and I will see you again next week after week 2. Well, let's see what happens because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered this week in the sport of softball. So thank you for your time. I will see you guys next week talking softball with Beach. We out.
Sounds great.